I like that one Spanish song that goes. What's up, everybody? I am live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, D Live, and soon twitch.tv/The Hake Report. Yes, I am there. What's up, everybody? And you're listening, if you've been listening and you heard my voice before we started the video stream, that means that you're listening on the live audio feed, which is available through Jesse Lee Peterson's live audio feed, which also streams church now, or also the TalkStream Live. I do have a TalkStream Live channel. Very nice. Download the app. It's a great way to listen, and you don't have to pull up video. Cool, huh? So, I'm going to be talking about this Amy Barrett woman. Coney Barrett, that is. And, you know, there's some riots going on. Black Lives Matter is still acting like they think that they can win over the people. It looked like they kind of won people over for a second when, you know, the knee on the neck incident, you know, with George Floyd. People felt sorry for the blacks. They got suckered by it. But, you know, they overplayed their hands because they're angry, out of control people. And President Trump is a decent man, that he doesn't play along with that stuff too much. So right on. And I'm going to touch on some other things. Parscale is reportedly got suicidal. Funny cartoon from Chinese state media that I got to show you. If you're listening to the audio feed, I will describe it for you, and maybe I'll share it on like Twitter or something. Oh, well, Twitter might censor it, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, guys, you can call in to 888-775-3773. I'm wearing my Qua t-shirt. Shout out to Mark for the design inspiration, and Lock Your Door for the couple of family men. Nice. For the actual design. Right on. All right, guys, let's get started with the show.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Hey, guys!
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
So, what do you guys think of this Amy Barrett lady? You know, I hear some positive things about her, you know, from the mainstream media. It's usually presented in a way that's meant to be negative, such as, oh, she might overturn Roe versus Wade, which is the disgraceful decision from 1973 made by, including Nixon appointees, I learned. There were a lot of Republicans. And of course, I think, was Thurgood Marshall the first black Supreme Court justice? He was part of the people, evil people, I think, who voted for abortion. And they called it your right to privacy or something dumb like that, right? Was it? Oh, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that sound was. But, yeah, it's so ridiculous. So, even Republican-appointed people, and I heard that Nixon was actually a great president. I could be wrong, but I'm beginning to suspect that he might have been actually a pretty solid president. We'll see. And, you know, Bush, the daddy, was not that solid of a president. He was a one-term president, but he appointed our best Supreme Court justice, maybe ever, Clarence Thomas. Seems like a solid guy. I like that. I watched a, in his own words, sort of documentary about him and his life, and I like that he was just a no-nonsense person. He used to be a black radical, but I think that his grandfather set a really good example of being no-nonsense, and so he's kind of like that as well. Ginsburg, as you know, she died, and maybe this Amy Coney Barrett woman will get appointed. She was nominated by President Trump and probably will be confirmed by the Senate. She does have those intense eyes of a driven woman. Males get that too. I'm accused of having crazy eyes sometimes. And Cortez has that like a mad woman. Alexandria Sandy Cortez, as the great Tucker Carlson refers to her. And there are others. There are others too. Just have those crazy eyes. And I think that it's both nervousness, insecurity, and whatever else. I don't trust the woman. I don't like how she was kissing up too much to Ginsburg. You'll notice that President Trump pays respect to her. He said, the line that I heard was his off-the-cuff line when he first heard about it. She was an amazing woman who led an amazing life, whether you agreed with her or not. That's what she was. And he said, I'm actually saddened to hear that she died. That's a nice statement. How can you disagree with that? She was amazing, amazingly evil, but she was amazing. And it was amazing that she lasted that long. Man, how old was she anyways? 80? She was probably in her 80s. I don't think she was in her 90s yet. I don't think. But a sick woman. I'm going to touch, too, on this Ilhan Omar. I don't know if it's Ilhan Omar directly, but people connected to her accused of voter fraud. Voter fraud. It's interesting. And Trump's taxes, too. It's so ridiculous. Debate is tomorrow, by the way. Debate is tomorrow. Are you pumped? I was worried that it was going to be a Skype debate. Like, oh, gosh. Imagine that Charles, what's his name? His name? Wallace? Chris Wallace of Fox News? Imagine him being like a podcast host and then kind of like on Modern Day Debate where Jesse Lee Peterson versus some liberal hosted by this nice Christian dude. Modern Day Debate. James from Modern Day Debate. He should host the debate. But thank God it's not going to be via Skype or Zoom or anything like that. They're going to be in person. And they're not going to do that dumb bump the elbow thing. Ridiculous. Shameful. I've seen other people do it, including Joe Biden. He and Bernie Sanders bumped elbows. He and his VP pick, Kamala Harris, they bumped elbows. Just looks stupid. They make a joke about it, but it's stupid. So I'm glad that he's not going to bump elbows. I think that was Trump. I don't know, but I think that it might have been Trump who said, we're not bumping elbows. They're not shaking hands either. Fauci wants handshakes getting rid of entirely. I think even President Trump suggested it. Maybe he'd been talking to Fauci just freshly. But Joe Biden, he used to be actually a formidable sort of debater. And the reason I say that is I remember him just stomping on, not with truth, but just stomping with shamelessness and lies and forcefulness on that weak rhino that some people kind of like him. I know one guy who likes him. Paul Ryan. He used to be sort of a Tea Party guy. I'm surprised he didn't last in office. I wonder why he didn't last in office. Too busy working out. Did you know that Paul Ryan works out? Yeah, the former Speaker of, what is that? The House? Was he was Speaker of the House? Yeah, Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan ran for Vice President, right? With Mitt Romney, the disgusting rhino whom I kind of liked him in 2008. I voted for him in 2012. I was thinking, okay, this is the best we can do. This is the best the Republicans can do, right? I just kind of resigned myself to that Republicans were going to always be politically correct and kissing up to women and stupid stuff like that. And blacks, and just never really tell the truth. And then Trump came on the scene telling the truth. So nice, so refreshing. But Joe Biden, he just shut Paul Ryan up, and Paul Ryan just sat there smiling, being polite, being honestly weak. It's like they were throwing the election. You know, when you throw a fight, just give up. And Mitt Romney, too. Oh, my gosh. I remember at one point, there was some controversy, right, with Obama doing something wrong or saying something wrong. And then Obama acted all indignant with Mitt Romney. And he's like, he looked back at him like this. How dare you? Something like that. And Mitt Romney just stood there. They were on their feet, right? Kind of like that classic Trump versus Hillary thing, on their feet, debating on their feet, walking around, pacing, trying to look natural. And I was like, that's so phony. How come Mitt Romney, you don't just say, that's so fake? I've never heard politicians call each other fake. I guess because they're fake themselves. I don't know. Or is it this phony, oh, you have to pay respect. Like in Congress, you're not allowed to impugn the character of your fellow congressmen, including the most disgusting people who get into Congress. It's ridiculous. It's all a pretense. It's like a shell of, you know how in Jesus' times, the religious leaders were just a shell of religion. It wasn't genuine. And that's how Christianity is today. It's so fake. This fake, oh, we gotta do seminary, and how do we know that you're who you say you are unless you have these such and such degrees from men? Yeah, Mitt Romney is a wimp. David Allen has it right. So I'm looking forward to, I like how Trump fights. He's going to debate right. What's that guy who can barely string together a sentence? Worse than even me. Joe Biden is not what he used to be in 2012. Even 4 years ago, I saw a clip of him. He had more meat on his bones. He had a little bit more fat. And when old guys get skinny, that's not a good sign. You know who looks like death, too, is Hillary Clinton's, I almost said wife, husband, Bill Clinton. I almost forgot how evil that guy was or is. So those guys are on their way out. It's like their wives suck them dry, like the life out of them. Metaphorically speaking, of course, I think. So I am going to read your super chats. I will get to your calls. But first, about this Amy Barrett lady. I have some details about her from TheSkimm. Sorry, just typing a message. This is from TheSkimm, which is that far-left female-run outlet about Amy Barrett. I'm not surprised that Trump appointed her. He was always pro-woman. And if there's any time to be pro-woman, at least in the worldly mindset thinking, it's, right now. So the TheSkimm, the far-left female-run outlet, TheSkimm, says Barrett is the first mother of school-aged kids, or maybe the first mother of school-aged kids if she gets appointed, to serve as a justice. School-aged children. How old is this woman? 50s? Late 40s? Look at them in the Oval Office. I know some people who adopted from overseas or from foreigners. Russians, actually. Couple of people, couple of families adopted Russians, and they already had kids too. Actually, some of the adopted kids were older, I think. I forget. But listen to this. She clerked for the late Justice Antonin Scalia back in the 90s, and she graduated from Notre Dame Law School. Notre Dame. Is it Notre Dame in America? This is America. We can call it Notre Dame. In 2017, she was appointed to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals by President Trump, I believe, in Chicago, Illinois. And I think she had a crazy confirmation process during that time. Or, you know, I guess the Senate confirms those justices too. Mitch McConnell is the guy who makes it happen, right? That's the Senate Majority Leader. So the Senate confirms the Supreme Court justices too. The House is not involved. So even though the Democrats run the House right now, and basically like the Democrats run the Senate, honestly, it's just Democrat light. I'm talking about the rhinos. But she was among the finalists in 2018 to replace Anthony Kennedy, Justice Anthony Kennedy. But Kavanaugh got in, Brett Kavanaugh, the guy who likes beer. And they accused him of trying to have sex with a woman. Well, yeah, in high school or something like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Kavanaugh got in. He cried. And Lindsey Graham got very indignant. It was one of my favorite moments of Lindsey Graham. He's like, y'all want power, and you'll do anything to get it. Something like that. I liked Lindsey Graham in that moment. He was right. Barrett is a devout Catholic and an originalist, supposedly, just like Justice Scalia was. And that's someone who interprets the Constitution as it was originally understood when it was adopted. Christine Blasey Ford accused Brett. She could be in favor of overturning. I don't even like this, feeding this could be, would be, who knows? Because there's speculation that she could be in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade, which is the disgraceful thing that I referenced from 1973. And she did leave the door open to changing precedent, because precedent is what is like kind of like norms. Oh, we set a precedent by making this decision, when in reality these were bad decisions most of the time. Previous rulings established by the Supreme Court, which is more like the inferior court, very inferior. And I was wondering too, by the way, you know how, I don't know if you watched the experts segment during the Jesse Lee Peterson show, but what are the constitutional requirements for a justice to be the justice? Do they have to have a law license? Do they have to be, you know, because right now they have this racket set up called law school and bar exams, and you have to pass the bar in California or such and such, whatever state, right? California's bar used to be pretty tough, and I heard that they're lowering the bar to pass the bar to allow more POCs in, I heard. And I just wonder, is it constitutional to require this stuff? Or is it just an elitist, which is an anti-American rule? Like back in the day, people would study law, right? They would read themselves. They would read books themselves and pass law stuff themselves. But it's kind of like this preacher thing. How preachers become so-called ordained. And all of the schools are a bunch of liberal places. Well, you've heard about this, what is it called? Critical race theory. That's taught in even so-called law schools. Ridiculous. It's insane. The Constitution spells, according to Nick, Jesse's producer, The Constitution spells out age, citizenship, and residency requirements for becoming president of the United States or a member of Congress, but no mention of rules for joining the nation's highest court, according to History.com. So I just wonder, like, Jesse Lee Peterson, Supreme Court Justice, could he still host the show, do church? Just curious, because we need some common sense, because lawyers are liars. And even the conservative so-called lawyers, many of them get kind of broken down in law school, I hear. And they're like, it attracts like intellectuals and overly driven people. You know what I mean? Barrett's been critical of Supreme Court rulings that have left the Affordable Care Act, which is a misnomer, Obamacare, in place. Socialist takeover, unconstitutional, by the way, socialist takeover of the so-called health insurance industry, so-called health care industry. She claimed Chief Justice John Roberts bent the law in his 2012 decision that so-called saved the Affordable Care Act by calling it a tax. The court is taking up another legal challenge a week after the election on Obamacare. Democrats say striking it down could be disastrous for Americans in the middle of a pandemic, as though they care. And as if this pandemic is really like a pandemic thing. Yeah, I know we're all shut down, but that's a shutdown. That's not the pandemic. The pandemic is the pandemic of weakness. It's not the disease. It's the major threat to the country. In a 2019 dissent, Barrett argued that the person convicted of a nonviolent felony shouldn't be automatically barred from owning a gun. Am I a woman for agreeing with her? Because they say, if you have a felony, you can't own a gun. Is that federal law or is it state law? At one point, they used to give, I heard, and I think I might have heard it from Asmodor, that in the olden days in Texas, I think it might still be the law, that you give them $100, a rifle, and a horse once they get out of prison, once they've served their time. And then you just go fend for yourself. Maybe it was $20. Money was worth more back then. But, I don't know. I don't know if felons, so-called nonviolent felons, maybe they shouldn't be called a felony. I don't know. Barrett's confirmation process is scheduled to start October 12th. 4 days of hearings are slated for opening statements, questioning, and testimony from outside so-called witnesses. She could be sworn in before November 3rd, which is Election Day. But, there's a lot of early voting going on. There's a lot of vote by mail. It's a big mess. It's a mess. Paul Ryan equals beta, says Beard the Butcher with the diamond. Very true. Man, what a disgrace. We thought he was a Tea Party guy. We were like, oh, Mitt Romney chose a real conservative, a stickler. He told Obama what's what with regard to how Obamacare was unaffordable or something like that. Nope. Just another kiss up. And he is into exercising regularly, which that's fine, but have some strength of character. Joe Maddock gave a diamond and said 2% of the U.S. population decide what is newsworthy. Yeah, and they are the worst percent, or among the worst percent of the U.S. population. It's very interesting. I was looking on Drudge and Revolver News. Neither of them, at least what I could tell, had any mention of this voter fraud uncovered, allegedly, by Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. I bet Breitbart covered it, because he's a Breitbart alum, I heard. Joe Maddock with a Ninjagini says ACB, praising RGB, proved the media and leftist opinion. Positive opinion about her? Thank you, Dramatic, for the Ninja Genie. Very generous. ACB being Amy Coney Barrett, and Coney being her maiden name. She kept it. It's like a fourth name because she's Amy Vivian Coney Barrett. And RGB is Ruth RBG. I don't know. Red, green, blue. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think it's RBG, man. He had him backwards, but might as well. She died and became a rainbow. Yeah, it was awful. She not only broke the glass ceiling, she shattered it. Stupid. It's like, oh, very deep. It's a meaningless statement. Women. I got to get to some calls. Appreciate you guys. And I will be checking the Streamlabs as well. Just got to log in there. I am live on YouTube. What's up, guys? I have made mention of alleged voter fraud. So we'll see what happens. I did it today and last week. We'll see what happens. You know, they have a liberal bias, the social media establishment. And they want to so-called keep peace by preventing inflammatory truth, so-called inflammatory, in other words, truth, from getting in. Man. Let me get to Christina in Sacramento, California. Christina, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Doing fine. How are you?
Nice. All right, so here's the thing, James. I also watched the entire announcement by our wonderful president regarding nominating this new Supreme Court, nominee. And so, James, I am a conservative mom. I've got 3 kids. I stay home. I've raised my kids. I help my husband with his business, and I'm a Christian. So just for your listeners, that's kind of who you're talking to right now. And when I saw her walk out with all those kids, I thought, holy cow, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
You know, and I the only thing I could think of is who's taking care of all these children. And then I saw her husband sitting with the kids, and I thought, oh, the biggest kid of them all. Okay, he's taking care of them all.
Oh, man. I just caught what you just said about her husband. Dang.
Right? I mean, I see him sitting in there, and he's, nodding his head, and I'm thinking, okay, what in the world is going on in the world here with this?
Is he a law professor, too, or something like that? Is he a lawyer as well?
He has his own law firm.
Okay.
So, and she made mention of that. She made sure that she mentioned that, which
Private
is important,
law.
so that everybody doesn't think he's just a stay-at-home dad type thing,
Yeah.
right? And I caught that. I thought, okay. And there's so many things, James. I'm looking at the oldest kid being Haitian. I'm like, why would you bring an older boy, when you got daughters in the house?
Oh, it's a boy?
That is I think so.
The oldest kid is a boy? Because there's a girl.
You know what? I'm sorry. That's right. It's a girl.
Okay.
That's right. Now get this, James, and I'll try to stay on track. But the first thing I thought is when our kids were little, we did this thing. You know how they have where you adopt a kid from another country and you send it money, and then you put the picture on the refrigerator.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. So-called adopt, meaning send money on a monthly basis to help a sort of sponsor a child. Yeah.
A sponsor, right. World Vision.
Right.
All right. So we had some of those kids, and we put their pictures on the refrigerator, and our kids were about the same age, and we talked to them. And every now and again, my husband and I were silly people, but we would say, oh, I bet Anadson would be grateful for that, pair of pants you have, or we would throw that at the kids, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is silly. But I think to myself, why would you get these kids from another country other than when you raise your children in this beautiful society that God has created, and they have everything they need and want, honestly, you want a sense of gratitude as an egotistical parent. And so I'm thinking sometimes, I used to think I'm just going to get a kid from another country so that they'll come in here and have gratitude. And just do what I say and be grateful. Yeah, it's a whole God complex. And I'm not saying that's what she has, but that's one of the first things that came to my mind is why would you go out of the country and date kids that are already old? other than they're going to just, oh, God, thank you for this morsel of rice, that you're providing for me type thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's,
right?
I don't understand it. It reminds me sort of, I know some Christian church, some of them are pastors, some of them are just children of pastors, not even missionaries, who have adopted like foreign kids, like I mentioned, children. And then I've seen like Madonna and
I know.
that other woman who's raising the the boy to be a girl.
Angelina Jolie.
Well, her too, but I was thinking the South African woman who used to be pretty, Charlize Theron. Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, a bunch of like fake do-gooders.
Yeah.
Run by the
exactly
females.
it.
Run by the. In fact, some of them are don't even have husbands.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Right? I can do it all, but they're not raising them, and that's the
Right.
second thing. They got nannies raising them. So when this new lady, Amy, I don't remember all her last pronouns and names and stuff, but Amy, right? She says, "Oh, my husband's taking over, and he's cooking better than me, and I have to thank him and all of our babysitters." And I thought, that's it.
Oh,
when you
wow.
are completely overrun with a work responsibility of this magnitude, I mean, you have to rely on all the babysitters and nannies to do everything, to drive them to the soccer practices, to go grocery shopping, to cook the darn food, all of it, get the laundry done, make sure the house is clean. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, James, okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the same thing, right? He was married to a high-profile woman, Maria Shriver,
Yeah.
our ex-California governor.
Right.
She would take off and go live her life, and what does he do? He goes with a nanny,
Wow.
right? And
Good
it's
point.
that I don't wish that on these people, but it's
Right.
like when you got and it's primarily women who are going to be picking the kids up and dropping them off. And hey, some of these women are cute,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too much.
It's
too
backwards.
much.
It's backwards. It's just like, well, it's what the experts were talking about with working women. It's it's completely undermining. It's like cheating. It's cheating the order of life where the woman raises the child or stays at home, makes sure the kids are not going out of control, and handles business, the business of the house. And
That's right.
It's perfect like that. And you don't need, you make less money, but you don't need that much money. People claim that it takes a lot of money to have kids and raise them. I'm not convinced that that's true. I've heard from, I don't know about your experience, but Vincent James, an independent journalist / activist, pretty conservative, said it doesn't take that much money to raise your kids and to have kids.
Yeah.
People,
it doesn't. And
people
if
scare you with that.
They do. And if you want to live in Beverly Hills, okay, right, you got to live within your means. And it doesn't mean you have to live in a one-bedroom apartment in Detroit.
Yeah.
There are ways around all of this. You can move to the lovely suburbs in some states, and it's affordable, and have a beautiful life.
Right.
It's just this conceived notion of what people think they need, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
It leaves everyone unhappy, including the females who are thinking that they're chasing after this stuff. It's crazy.
Honestly. And James, here's the thing. I think to myself, there's not a lot of females that I can have discussions with because, and I don't know what they think about me, and I honestly, thank God I'm to a point where I don't care. There are some, but they're few and far between, and I have to find them, in different parts of the country and the world.
Yeah.
And thank God for social media. I can connect with these individuals because it is, it's not part of the social norm right now for me to be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I can go into and have a discussion with my teenage sons and have an open dialogue with them wherein I see these other moms, they don't understand how I can do that. But I've set that up.
Nice.
Where we have family time, we do things together. They don't not want to be with us because it's just something that they're used to doing. And
interesting.
One thing that, right, my 18-year-old son, he's out with all his friends and whatnot, and he came to me one day and he said, Mom, it's so bizarre. my friends have told me that it's so weird. The word they use is weird, that they don't see you and Dad fighting. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, that is.
You know?
That's interesting. I appreciate it, Christina. Thank you for the input.
Hey, one more thing really quick, James.
Go for it.
The only thing that I got out of this woman, Amy, is that what struck my heart is when she said, "I love our country and I love our Constitution."
Yeah.
I thought, bingo, if that's it. And James, I agree with you. You said this to Jesse. Trump had to put somebody in there that can go through and not have somebody, if he put Ted Cruz in there or somebody, someone would have been unearthed and said that he raped him, and then this would have dragged out.
Yeah.
He had to get somebody as clean as a whistle, get a woman, boom, done.
I
That's how I see it.
I hope we can start turning the culture around. I'm heartened to see a minority of people speaking up about this. Thanks, Christina. Take care.
Have a good day.
You as well. Man. Let me quickly let Art get it off his chest in Ohio about this woman, Amy Barrett. Art, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Art?
Doing well.
Hey, how you doing? All right, so quick question. I ain't gonna lay into her that much, and I don't really have to because she's laying into herself or whatnot.
Yeah.
But she's one of I'm a Negro and she's white, but she's still American. So she's American. So I gotta and this is me just speaking up for the conservatives. I feel like me and you in the show when the past lady that just called. Like I agree with her. I'm with her. I can tell how that was a genuine caller. She sounds like she's a real alpha female. I can hear how she's talking and everything. Long story short, my problem with this judge is that you said she let an older Haitian boy move in around her young white daughters, or teens.
I don't know.
So
I don't know. I don't know the ages. Haven't been interested enough to look it up.
Well, okay. Well, let's see.
Because the oldest child is the black girl.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's a brother too who's older than some of them. Older than some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, kids, at a certain age, we boys. I'm a boy, so I don't know about what girls go through with their little breasts growing and how they body flows or whatnot. But I know with boys, we look at girls all the way different, and you see what I'm saying? And our testosterone starts to build, our genitals drop, and that's when we start producing testosterone,
right.
And we might look at a girl in school now and be like, oh, she got a big butt, or her breast, or like how I used to do in middle school. I used to just try to touch I ain't saying this was cool or whatnot, but I try to feel I like girls. I'm simple as that. I ain't got no shame in the game, and they liked it too. They ain't say nothing, and the ones that did, I just chilled out. You see. But long story short, with the judge though, whatnot, I wouldn't be trying to. That was a bad decision. That shows me her decision making skills right there. You uprooting your kids. You already don't even raise them yourself because you got nannies or whatnot. So you can't even run your house, but you trying to basically be the judge of freaking America. You ain't even running your house clearly. And that's too much, man. You got too many kids, man. You supposed to at least if you had 2 or 3, I'd be like, that's cool. That's not too much on her plate. But you got your kids and you took on somebody else's kids from another country. And then I feel like
a fair point.
You pandering to the black people. All them people out here going to get these little white people going to get these black kids. Why don't you go get one of these poor white kids that need your help?
It's a good question. Why don't you
go get one of these poor black kids that's in America and help them or whatnot? Because my thing is this: America's been helping overseas for however long, the last 40-something years.
To their detriment in some ways. In some cases, it's to their detriment. It undermines the businesses over there in Africa and places.
And then my thing is, you said it undermines their business?
Yeah, their businesses, because there are people trying to run businesses in Africa, farmers and all that stuff, and then the free food coming in or free whatever, or some type of help, it undermines them, because they're not able to compete. How do you compete with free?
Yeah. Well, not even that. Well, okay, and I ain't think about that, but even think about this, Jake. How do you compete when you got these rich white people over here coming over here extorting and stealing, getting your people or whatnot, like how this judge did? I ain't saying steal them. They went through the process,
right,
allegedly, and got them. But how do you compete with them when all your potential good workers, like them kids who just came over here, are now in America? You see what I'm saying? You losing your potential buyers and your consumers and customers to America as far as your laborers and people who's living in the houses over there. Long story short, I'm just saying, like, I don't know about her. I don't know if Trump is just throwing this out to see how we feel as the American people, the alphas and the conservatives. But she don't seem like she. I don't like that when you try to make it seem like the male is behind the female, and that says a lot about your character, because the Bible already said what's up with that, and we already know, man. So, and America's headed to the wrong place. They don't return them kids back to the fathers, like God said, and you can bet your bottom dollar on that. God bless you, Hake. I love the show.
Thank you, Art.
Talk to you later. Yes, sir.
Take care. You know, I'm actually more kids. I'm for more kids, not fewer kids. Fewer children. More children, not fewer. I think children are generally, at least especially if they're raised decently, they're pretty independent, and they take care of themselves and of each other. They don't really need a babysitter much, especially with that girl who's like grown now, basically. Not that she wants to sit around babysitting, but I don't know. Aren't you allowed? I think that you're not allowed, at least in America, to leave your child alone at home. California or wherever I grew up, you know, to leave your child at home if they're under 12, which seems too old. Maybe it's 10 or 9 or 8. But my parents could have left me at home at 5. I would have been fine. Get some peanut butter and jelly. Get some cereal. I'm fine. As long as this fridge is stocked. Or I could just go, you know, I had a little bit of money sometimes. I would work for $5 an hour or $2 an hour. I don't know how much I worked for. Sometimes it was $5 an hour, right? Work on the roof of the house. My dad paid me $5 an hour. But go to the licorice. I called it licorice store, but it's the liquor store, and grab some candy or whatever. People don't. I don't know. I like when you have more kids than fewer. But I don't understand about the. I think that whites are guilty of giving too much, not enough. Usually, they give too much. They're more likely than others to adopt children of other races, I think. At least in my experience. And it's not always the decent whites who are doing it. Sometimes it's do-gooders. Remember that lesbian couple? That lesbian couple that killed most of their children drove off the cliff. They attended a Black Lives Matter protest, you know, because they're dumb, I think white. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not white Christian type lesbians. Not that there's a Christian lesbian, but Christian raised, right? And then turned away from it. There's a viral picture of this one boy who's hugging a white, fat police officer and crying, tears in his eyes, all stylish. And he got killed, driven off the cliff by a couple of lesbians, along with his siblings. And there were like allegations of abuse. No, they're not feeding us, they're abusing us and stuff like that by neighbors. Crazy stuff. But I'm not talking about Barrett's family like that. There's a lot of like decent, well-behaved families with adoptees. So, before I get back to this stuff, I do want to talk about, I guess the riots next. I got to talk about that. But quickly, let me get to Robert in Kansas. He has an interesting tip for you guys. Robert, good to hear from you. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning, man. Thanks for the call. It is absolutely beautiful here in Kansas on the flat earth today. We got rain, and the sun is shining now, and it's so incredible.
I've been to Kansas once. I went to Wichita, Kansas, in
Wichita,
July or August.
Down there, man.
What's
for
that?
Sure. There's some history down there in Wichita. That's a pretty wild place with all the cattle and everything. That judge lady, Hake, women.
You warned us about her with some of the things that she's about.
Yeah, but that one caller you had, just that fundamental understanding of like some women just get it. Like they're like, my role should be as a mother, you know, and I should fulfill that role as granted by God. You know, God gave me these children. I'm going to raise them as my own.
And it's an honor. It's an honor. People act like people dismiss, evil people dismiss that role. It's crazy.
It's also a woman. It's a woman who's connected to God too. So she in some way she understands the nature of things and how life should go and what she needs to sacrifice for her children. And I think those women will be righteously rewarded in the afterlife that really fulfill those roles. Some woman that has children goes into the workforce, that's a derelict, man. That's
honestly,
someone who is giving up their responsibility.
I think that they're rewarded in this life, and they're the ones who go into the workforce, they suffer in this life. It's not just the afterlife that they get their rewards and results, punishments, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I agree. They'll find themselves in their 20s and 30s in the prime of their life, as women especially, and they're in some cubicle, and they're childless, and they're miserable, and they're doing what the system is telling them to do, and they're not doing what the men are telling them to do. And
what a setup.
Well, yeah, and it's causing them more pain. They think that the government's the good guy and the daddy is the bad guy, the real dad, the natural father, and they need to get it through their head that maybe one of these individuals, one of these entities is bad, but it certainly isn't the father. The father's where you come from, you know, so that's not bad. It is the system. It is what the institutions and the schools and the media. That's what's bad, not the father, not where you come from.
Right. You know, Stefan Molyneux, the guy who's been on the Jesse Lee Peterson show, and who's interviewed Jesse Lee Peterson many times. He's an atheist philosopher, but he's maybe center-right, I guess. He's pointed out a stat that women are more unhappy today than ever. More depression and all that stuff, anxiety, more mentally ill than ever. Or at least than, in the last 50 or 60 years. And I totally believe that. It's just plainly obvious. Just look around. Yeah, good points, man.
I want to move from the women to the blacks. I know we talk about blacks here too, and just race relations in general, all races. But there's a particular gentleman I want to highlight. If the audience hasn't known about him or his work, he's a black man. I call him my brother because the work he has done is of merit, regardless of his race. He has done a lot of work. He seems to be a very intelligent man. His name is Dontell Jackson, Dontell Jackson.
I've heard of that guy.
And he has a website, and this is very important. Hopefully everyone looks this up. It's called WeThoughtTheyWereWhite.com. We Thought They Were White. And he basically goes through the real history of slavery, going back beyond black slavery, the Atlantic slave trade, even beyond that. But
and does he
really?
Yeah, I caught a glimpse of that. Does he cite sources that people can follow up for themselves and look into it for themselves too?
He has an excellent work at his webpage here that the information's all there. It's only 5 or 6 pages of reading. It takes you 10 or 15 minutes, and it's just he points out that the white man is being blamed for the things that he's being blamed for, and the blacks are being manipulated by those same institutions we were talking about with the women. They're being manipulated to think and feel a certain way about black people, about themselves, about the history, about everything that isn't necessarily how things happen. And he goes through and he shows that the white race had almost nothing to do with slavery. It was not whites, but Central Asian Khazars, the small hats. Jesse has been mentioning a few things.
Right,
I've
heard people say this before. In all honesty, that's if what he's saying is true and nice, it's great. But it's kind of honestly beside the point, because why the overreaction to slavery? Who cares? You know what I mean? It's nice to know the history, right? But who cares about slavery? It's something to be celebrated as having been in our past. The slave owners were awesome for having owned and run slaves. I don't envy that. And the slaves themselves, if they served, if both sides were dignified in how they conducted their slave mastering and their enslavement, if they lived with dignity, that's something to be respected. But they just consider the situation in life as a evil in itself, and I don't believe that it is. You know what I mean? Anyway,
I do, Hake, and you're right. What I would just say why it matters is that they're using that deception, that same deception we learn in our schools, to drive race relations right now today into a very low point, where they're telling blacks to attack whites essentially, and they're using that same deception. So that's why it matters. They convinced black people that white people are their enemy.
But I appreciate it, Robert.
That's not really the case.
Yeah, it's true.
That's just not true.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay.
Take care, man. He's right. They the Confederacy, and they say that the Confederates are pro-slavery. Do you know any KKK member or do you know any KKK member? Period. I don't. But the people who are the sons of Confederate veterans, which they seem to try to be politically correct, but the people who are of the South, they're some of the best people. Actually, some of the blacks in the South are working people themselves, which is honorable, but many of them are brainwashed. But there's this fake cowardice with regard to slavery, as though it's something to be ashamed of. It's like lies on top of lies on top of lies with this who did what. But interesting tip. Thank you, man. Before I get to this riots and stuff, let me quickly get to Stephen in Raleigh, North Carolina. He has a question for me that I'd like to address. Stephen, how are you doing?
How's it going, Hake?
Going well. How are you?
Calling again. I'm on a roll here.
Right on.
My original question was, you seem to have a lot of criticism when it comes to George Bush.
George Bush, the father, yeah. Well, actually, the son is maybe even worse, but...
Oh, both of them, so you're not such a fan, right?
Yeah, and the reason is because they undermined and didn't even vote for Trump, I don't think. Maybe one of the nephews did.
Sucks. But, here's with me, like, just to give you a little brief, whatever, all my family, they all hate Trump, but unfortunately, but one of my brothers, he influenced me. He was a Republican. So I registered Republican, like, maybe as young as 18. It might have been 20, but whatever. And I just kind of stuck by it, I kind of just supported the party, I'm like, I'm on their website. Like, I do volunteer work for them. I go down to the Republican headquarters and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm all into it. And I love Trump, definitely. He has some issues, but not that much. I think he does pretty darn good. He might not be the most well-spoken person.
I think he's very well-spoken.
He speaks the truth.
Yeah.
But the other thing, this is kind of off topic as well. Like, what
do you think about? So, did you like the Bushes?
I did.
How about now?
I know he kind of. I don't know how. I was a little younger at the time. Like, I was like probably 23 whenever 9/11 happened.
Yeah, I was about that age.
But I liked how he handled it. Maybe he didn't handle it that great. But I was a little naive at the time. But I stuck by him.
Right. So did I.
Yeah. And
what about him on immigration and stuff like that?
I'll be honest. I don't really know. I didn't know much about it. I was.
That's how I was too. I wasn't paying attention to the wars, the Middle East stuff, because I knew that I know that the left was beside themselves in opposing him. So I just naturally just didn't care what they said about the wars and all that stuff.
At that time, to some extent, the left was at least less insane than they are now. That's for sure.
Maybe.
But they still. I didn't stand by them at all. Definitely not. I hated Clinton.
What about taxes? Did you know about taxes back then?
I always said this, and people don't like it when I say this because they think I support gay people or whatever. But look, I'm socially liberal to some extent, not with everything. Like I'm pro-life, but I'm not I'm economically conservative, and I don't like a lot of government getting involved with everything. So that's the extent of what I knew about taxes. But was I well versed in it? Like, did I know a whole bunch about it? No, I did not know at all.
Yeah, me neither.
I just naively said, "Yeah, I'm Republican, awesome."
Right.
Like, I'll never forget. There was this one time, me and my buddies, Raleigh can be a pretty liberal town.
Yeah.
It used to not be, but
Is it
changed.
because of colleges or immigration or what? I've been to Raleigh.
You've been to Raleigh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were
NC
like
State.
Mexicans playing soccer. They invited me to play soccer with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Chapel Hill is like that's super liberal. Chapel Hill is like super liberal. But and NC State is to some extent. But the beauty of it is like one day we went down to the Republican office or headquarters, whatever you want to call it, and we were carrying signs of Bush and then like people would honk their horn and say "F Bush," and all that stuff.
How come you don't sound very Southerner? How come you don't sound very Southern?
I was born in Pennsylvania, like near the Philadelphia area.
All right.
And being one of 8 kids, I never picked up on the Southern accent. I'm second to youngest of 8, so none of us really ever got it.
Wow. All the same parents?
Yeah, and
Are you
same
white?
parent. Same mom and dad. So Jesse would be proud. White babies, baby.
Nice.
But
yeah, but it's interesting that you guys aren't that. Well, I mean, if you were born in Philly or Pennsylvania somewhere, that's. I guess it kind of explains. I mean, it
Also,
kind
the
of.
area
I guess
I
it
live
makes
in-
sense that the family is kind of liberal.
Yeah. So but,
Interesting, man.
It's funny because
So you're okay with same-sex marriage?
no.
Oh, okay.
No.
How about abortion? Are you okay with abortion?
Oh no, I'm pro-life, 100%.
What are you socially liberal about? Are you liberal?
Well, I guess okay, fine. I'm not okay with same-sex marriage stuff, but I'm not gonna like I've said this before too. This might sound retarded, but I've said if I could waive a right to have, I would waive protesting because I think it doesn't help. I mean, maybe during the civil rights movement back in the day, they made some changes, sure, with protesting.
Not good changes.
But I do not like protesting at all. I think it's not an effective way to really get your point across. I think it's better to go through Congress. I know it's not easy, but it's the better way to go.
Interesting, man. I mean, I don't disagree in that none of the biggest protests were any good at all. That's not socially liberal.
But so maybe I'm not necessarily socially liberal. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not.
Interesting.
But I mean, I just don't. Whatever they want to do, go ahead. Like it doesn't affect me. Go ahead. I guess is what I'm saying.
Interesting, man. Well, I appreciate it, Steven. Good to hear from you. Call me again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm going to call it more often. The first few times I called, I was a timid beta male.
Oh, okay.
But I'm waking up a little bit, and
right on, man.
Perhaps we'll have some good conversations. But I definitely think you're doing a great job with your show, man. Except for all the black talk, you definitely seem to be obsessed with all the black stuff, but that's okay. I'm only joking with you, by the way. But I think it's funny, I'm like, man, no more black talk. Come on, man. But no, but it's all good. It's a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I tune into your show, and thank God you're back on YouTube. I dig it, dude.
Appreciate that. Take care, Steven.
All right, you take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Very interesting. So, speaking of black talk, Drudge on the riots. I'm going to get to that. Portland, Oregon, still a mess. And is Breonna Taylor riots still going on? Were they going on last night? I think it's like 3 or 4 days, or maybe 5 days of riots and agitation. Speaking of banning, he's not a boomer, he's Gen X, that guy right there. Speaking of banning protesting, I would love that, honestly. I mean, I like to counter protests and be like, you guys are dumb or whatever. Trump loves you, stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to touch on all of that stuff. And there was a cop who was attacked, pistol whipped allegedly, Or you had right here down in San Pedro, LAPD officer. Crazy. Right in his station. And Black Lives Matter is in Yorba Linda, California, which is OC. That's like OC. Orange County, California. And other things. I got to show you that Chinese cartoon. Anyway, guys, I'll be right back for hour 2. Hang tight, guys. Just saying gave a diamond towards the end of the hour and said Trump picked a female because of weak GOP senators. That may be partly true. He's just working in the world and with the world the best he can. I don't know. We knew going in that he was pro-woman. This is not a surprise that he would do this. So, got to take the bad with the good, right? Anyway, I got to tell you guys about this crazy stuff going on. In Portland, Oregon, that's up in the Pacific Northwest, once beautiful area. Now there's a bunch of dumb liberals who say, keep Portland weird, and then they kiss up to Black Lives Matter. It's not weird, it's trendy. Stupid. They're suffering from fires and protests. They had the Proud Boys over there. Nice. I didn't hear too much come out of that. I don't know what went on, but they call them far-right groups. Proud Boys are not far-right, they're centrists. They want to respect the way that life is supposed to be with families, housewives, stuff like that. Western civilization. Some of them are like center left. Some of them are kind of far left. Some of them are like center right. Some of them are like, okay, they're conservative. Some of them. But the Proud Boys are just a bunch of decent people generally. They don't mind fighting back against the Antifa who attacks them and decent people. Free speech. There was like this free speech protest rally a couple of years back I think Lauren Southern went there. She's like a centrist. And she was like attacked, or they were trying to get her. And they rioted over Milo and Ben Shapiro, just these vanilla people. By vanilla, I just mean like they're very safe in what they say. It sounds kind of edgy to people who are really not used to hearing any truth at all, I guess. But it's such a lame, dumb thing. But people call them left and right-wing activists. No, they're like centrists versus centrists and people who would prefer to be peaceful, but who don't mind fighting, versus outright evil enemies of America who don't want America to exist, hate white people, even though some of them are purportedly white. I don't know. I'm referring to Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Same thing. They're the same thing. So is Occupy Wall Street people. They're the same thing. They're all enemies of America. Along with the mainstream media, including the New York Slimes. Trump was booed, by the way, when he paid his respects to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Is it Ginsburg or Ginsburg? She drank wine. She didn't drink gin, right? But they were chanting, vote him out. Stupid. Useful idiots. The country's full of them. When I use the term useful idiots, that's a reference to what I understand about communism, right? Communism being about destroying independent countries and building a globalist, socialist, communist world, right? It kisses up to females and POCs and hates Christianity and real Christians and whites and men. That's what I mean by useful idiots, is the people who will get suckered by the attack on whites and by the attack on men and by the attack on America and the South, the beautiful South. There's nothing to attack the South about with regard to blacks. Nothing. But blacks just are blind, useful idiots for it. And too many other people, too, especially young people. And everybody says, oh, vote, vote. Or they'll just fraudulently vote, too, but they'll say, make sure you vote. You'll notice that all the worst people urge you to vote. Not you, necessarily, but they urge the useful idiots, the masses of people who don't have any sense, who believe what the media says. The media wouldn't lie to us, would they? They outright do lie. 4 or 5 nights in a row now, revived fake racial justice movement, which is what the mainstream calls them. It's a lie. It's not. Racial justice means not justice. Social justice means not justice. Hat tip to Evan Sayet. He's like supposedly a conservative comedian, Jewish comedian, actually. But he points out a true statement that when you add any adjective to the word justice, it means not. Reproductive rights are not rights. You know? It's so backwards, honestly. Reproductive rights. It's taking away the man's right to have his baby be born. The heck? Environmental justice is not justice. Social justice is upending real justice. That's why they want to change the laws. They want to change it from innocent unless proven guilty to assume you guilty if you're white or men. It's crazy. And they're outright saying it. People are accusing these 4 cops or 3 cops or whatever of murder with regard to Breonna Taylor, the woman who was heavily involved in the drug crime business and violence. And by the way, I don't know if when I kind of agreed with that, like a simp with that woman, Amy Barrett, who said, oh, nonviolent felons should still get their Second Amendment, right? Because felons lose their Second Amendment. It's crazy. I think it's kind of crazy. But I wonder who took them away. Don't you wonder? Because, okay, this is the law now. So now you commit a felony, you know that you're going to lose your right to carry a gun. But who was the one who took that away? Because I don't think that was there when it started. when all this stuff started. I question how that happened. But now it's the law, and you have to respect the law, of course. But I don't think, though, that so-called nonviolent drug offenses, not all of them are nonviolent. So, not including the drug criminals in this felons get their guns back. So-called nonviolent felons get the guns back. People are called nonviolent felons a lot, and then later on they get released and they commit a murder or whatever. It's dumb. So anyway, rioters and agitators, which they call mostly peaceful protesters, took to the streets across the country to protest the lack of charges against police and the death of the Breonna Taylor in Louisville. A lynch mob. A lynch mob. If they could get away with stringing up those officers, they would. A lynch mob. CNN showed demonstrations from Los Angeles, Sacramento, Philadelphia, Boston, probably many other places too. It's ridiculous. Everyone from Facebook to YouTube, this is from Axios, right? Axios is a far-left outlet associated with HBO, and the founder of Axios is also like a co-founder of Politico, I think. Facebook, YouTube, and the U.S. military are so-called taking precautions for post-election civil unrest exploding because liberals are not peaceful unless they're sedated and dull and docile. But most of the violence is from the left. Bunch of leftist enemies of America. And I wonder what the backstory with this case is in Los Angeles. Well, San Pedro specifically. That's down by Long Beach, down south of here. San Pedro is called the Harbor Division, LAPD station, Los Angeles Police Department station. An officer was wounded during an attack inside the police station. A guy walked in at like 10 o'clock at night or 10:30, I don't know. And then somehow, I don't know if he got the guy's gun or if he had a gun himself, this suspect, and I'm assuming it's a dude. I would hope that a female wouldn't be able to come in and pistol whip a guy. And I don't know if he was actually pistol whipped, but he was left with bumps and bruises, this cop, after being fired upon, but not struck in the LAPD station. He had wounds consistent with being pistol whipped. That's when they take the pistol and they take the butt of the pistol and they whip you with it. Well, they smack you across the head with it usually, or face. I learned that from TV. Bad shows, huh? But a watch commander heard the commotion, shot at this suspect. Suspect got in like a white truck, drove off, led him on a chase. He was apprehended. I think hopefully he got beat up a little bit too. Apprehended. I don't know who it was, if it was a black dude or a Hispanic guy or maybe even a white person. Maybe even an Asian person. But don't know the motive, but it's crazy times right now. And Black Lives Matter is speaking even further south or further south and east, because you got to go, when you're coming down California, you're going further east because it cuts in. Anyway, Yorba Linda, California. Yorba Linda is where some like friends of the family moved, and I was like, wow, this is like rich world. They have a 2-story house and nice neighborhood. It's all quiet and rich looking. You know, there's the 80s, early 90s. And it is a well-to-do, generally, area, Yorba Linda, but they're poorly raising children there. And, you know, immigration, too, is not helping the situation. The public school system is very corrupt. Churches are corrupt. Parents are corrupt. What a mess. 2 people were injured after a car drove through a Black Lives Matter protest and counter-protest in Yorba Linda, according to ABC7 down here. Yorba Linda, California, man. And Yorba Linda sounds like it's a Spanish name, right? But no, it's like when I was there, it was pretty much a white area. I wasn't there, but I would visit sometimes friends of the family. Violence erupted Saturday in Yorba, where at least 2 people were seriously injured after a car drove through a demonstration involving members of Black Lives Matter. I thought it wasn't a membership group. And counter-protesters. Thank God there were at least counter-protesters. That's the only reason that I somewhat disagree with this man who called in about wanting to ban protests. And I disagree with him about the civil rights protests being any good. I don't think that they were. I don't think so. Look at the people today. You know, the leftovers. Well, some of them have died recently, but just the scum of the earth. Whatever. The man suffered 2 broken legs and the woman had minor injuries, said the Orange County Sheriff's Department sergeant. Suspect was apparently associated with the so-called, listen to this, caravan of justice. That could go any direction, because it could be caravan of anti-justice, of non-justice, of injustice, which is to say like social justice. So I don't know. The BLM protests against so-called police violence and so-called systemic racism, which the mainstream media credulously repeats it as though those are valid things. They don't call it so-called. They call it police violence, systemic racism. They act like those things are real. Enemies of America. Suckers, many of them. A lot of them are like young people who have been trained in colleges. These so-called journalists. Some Trump supporters waved American flags, held pro-Trump signs, and chanted, USA, USA, which always makes me feel, racist. Because guys always chant USA anytime like they beat a Mexican team or a black team or whatever. At least so goes the stereotype. That's brainwashing, huh? To think that it's racist to chant USA, USA, USA. They verbally confronted each other, but violence did not ensue. Nice. Trump supporters are peaceful people. A man was arrested for refusing to leave. 250 total protesters converged on the scene. Urban Organizers Coalition called it March for, the number 4, equality. They're black. Or maybe Hispanic. Or maybe just dumb liberals. But Caravan 4, number 4, Justice, led this effort, which was supposed to be marching. And I don't know. Maybe they say that they're addressing racism, police brutality, local injustices, and more throughout Los Angeles and Orange counties. So maybe it was just a mentally ill person. He was attempted to drive away from the situation when he struck the protester. I don't know if he was just accident or what, because you get trapped in that type of situation. I don't know. Depends on what's going on. Whether you floor it and just get out of there, or keep on moving and nudging the people, or you just stop. What are you supposed to do? Stay away from those situations, I say. Logan 76 with the diamond and fan of the ladies with another diamond says, America needs Jesus to this day. Trump 2020, woo! Thank you to Dark Side of the Bear. What? To this day! Thank you to Dark Side of the Bear for hosting the show, and thank you to Jesse Lee Peterson also hosting the Hake Report on D-Live. Appreciate you guys. Very nice. So what a mess. Did you hear that military suicides are up? Thanks, Obama. Yeah, I know that we've had a couple of years of Trump, or almost 4 years of Trump in office. But think about it. These departments are filled with a bunch of liberals who are undermining the country and undermining the advancement of the country. Meaning moral advancement of the country. I'm not talking about this fake progress stuff that they try to push. Let me give you some proof. I was posting on Instagram. And I'm not one to normally post on Instagram, but I was posting on Saturday. Just posted a few posts. And I've referenced this article from The Hill. The Hill article, October 26th, 2016, 4 years ago, right? But things haven't changed. I dare say that things haven't changed much, even with Trump in office. And I don't know that he can really do much. But listen to this headline from The Hill. Government workers shun Trump, give big money to Clinton. That's as in Hillary Clinton when she was running for office. And everybody knew that Hillary Clinton was corrupt. They just generally, they don't maybe even have to know specifics. They just know that she's corrupt. Everybody. Including my liberal friends. They're like, but she kills people. I didn't know that, but people know that she's not an honest woman. Donations by federal workers to the Trump and Clinton presidential campaigns. $1,852,881 from Clinton. To Clinton. $106,586 to Trump. That is more than 10 times, almost. That's 18 times almost. Certainly 15 times. 17 times more went to Clinton than to Trump. Percentages of donations from federal employees going to Clinton by agencies. Agriculture, Department of Agriculture, 99.4% of donations from federal employees went to Hillary Clinton. 99.4%. Commerce, Department of Commerce, 96.2% to Clinton over Trump. Donations, money. And these people are overpaid too, by the way. Government money, government job, overpaid. Defense Department, 84% to Hillary Clinton. And that's the Defense Department. They're supposed to look out for the country. Education Department, so-called education, more like indoctrination department, which Ronald Reagan was supposed to disband the Department of Education, right? I heard 99.7% of donation money from federal employees in the Department of Education went to Hillary Clinton. That's disgusting. 0.3% could have gone to Trump in education. That's it. What a disgrace. Department of Energy, 95%. HHS, so-called Health and Human Services, 96%. Department of Homeland Security, so-called Homeland Security, 90% went to Hillary Clinton. Yeah, right. You're looking out for our security. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, 96%. That's surprisingly low, actually, to Hillary Clinton. IRS, the corrupt Internal Revenue Service that collects your taxes and audits people with political motivations, allegedly, under the Obama administration. 94% went to Hillary Clinton of the donations. Department of Labor, 99.4%. Communists. They don't care for actual workers. Evil. Department of so-called Justice, 97%. This is the DOJ. That's supposed to track crime and all that stuff. They have a whole division, so-called the Civil Rights Division, that makes its business meddling in the affairs of Christians and whites and accusing them of discrimination. Ridiculous. And men. They do that to men, too. That's the Department of so-called Justice. The State Department, 99% went to Hillary Clinton. And she was the Secretary of State. But that was, appointed by Obama. But the State Department employees, these are bureaucrats. They're not elected. They're hired. And they're constantly working right now. Those who haven't been fired, and it's hard to fire these people, to undermine the president. Treasury Department, 95% to Hillary Clinton. Veterans Affairs, 88% to Hillary Clinton. They don't care about what's right. And don't think that it's just because he's a Republican, because in name only, because Romney, the rhino, received 14% of donations from this same group of agencies, whereas Trump got 5% of donations from these agencies. So the rhino, he seemed safer for the Democrat interests. Romney got close to $300,000 more dollars from the same department's employees, whereas Trump didn't even get $300,000. He got $106,586. It's crazy. So he got about $400,000. Romney did, almost 4 times what Trump did. You know, back in 2012. I heard that's the value of that information is kind of limited because they changed the way that things go. Department of Education employees. Trump received 3 donations totaling $220 from the whole Department of Education. I wonder how many workers are in these organizations, these departments, these bureaucracies. Sick. Clinton received 724 donations. He received 3. She got $74,000. He got $220. She got 99.7% of donations from employees in the so-called education department. And it's ridiculous. Employees of more Trump-friendly agencies, so-called Trump-friendly agencies, are 80 to, like I've been telling you, 80 to 90% or more anti-Trump. Veterans Affairs, 88%. Homeland Security, 90%. Defense employees, it's crazy. That's sick. So there's your sources cited. Consider the sources cited. Anybody who accused me of not having facts. And so naturally, in the military, they've been pushing since I was a kid. They've been having like women in the military. I saw a movie recently from like the 80s, and it had so many female cops. I was like, did they really have this many female cops back then? What a mess. It was Lethal Weapon. What year was Lethal Weapon? I don't know. But they had a bunch of female cops. And I don't know if this is COVID, the shutdown related or what, that the military suicides are up. Military has been struggling with suicides for some time, actually. I remember even during Obama and maybe even during Bush, people were committing suicide. Maybe they couldn't handle the crazy wars that we were in the Middle East or elsewhere. A lot of veterans get this mental illness or spiritual illness, honestly, that are, they call it PTSD or the 1,000-yard stare or whatever. But they're allowing mentally ill people in and spiritually ill people in, too. Homosexuals and gays in the military. And transgenders. Trump is trying to reverse a little bit of that. And there's some crazy stuff going on with Fort Hood. What a mess. So anyway, I just had to share that with you. The media is not really able to tell you an honest analysis of it because they're just so slanted in their obvious agenda. They're not going to tell you the truth about it. They're not going to tell you the problems that come with homosexuals and out shameless homosexuals and all that stuff, and women and men mixing in the military. Not a good idea. Anyway, I got to share with you this funny cartoon that I came across. Revolver News. I've been looking at Revolver, and yes, I believe that I am starting to notice that Drudge does seem to be compromised. Like, the number of ads that show up are different in my mind. It's different. There's like way more ads that I'm seeing spotted out throughout. The site seems more cluttered. It doesn't seem like Matt Drudge is running it. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's losing his edge. But it does seem like it is changing. I noticed that there's this black bar that shows up, and it says privacy policy. You agree to use this site for blah, 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 blah. Was that him, or was that a company that took over for him? Like, did he actually sell it? I'm just wondering. And the pictures that they use, like there's pictures, some of them they don't seem like they needed to be there. It used to be like, I don't know, it used to be cleaner. So I'm thinking maybe you guys are right about this Drudge thing. And there was no mention of, I saw yesterday there was a liberals worried about James O'Keefe, right? But this morning I was looking, I didn't see any mention of James O'Keefe's expose on the Minnesota Democrat corruption, alleged corruption, right? Seeming corruption. And I'm really not surprised. I'm going to talk about Ilhan Omar in a second. But look at this Chinese state media goes woke, says Revolver News. Revolver.news, right? Accuses American police of racism in a cartoon. Chinese Xinhua News and its state-affiliated media. Statistics show, this is their tweet, time and again that some are disproportionately prejudiced against in the United States. Hashtag fight racism. It's bad English, and it's false, phony statistics. So yes, I guess the Chinese are commies. When they talk about the Chinese communists, it's like, I'm not that worried about it because I'm more concerned about the enemies within. Yeah, I know we get a lot of Asians coming in here, and they get suckered by the liberal media and the liberal so-called education indoctrination system. They come to our best schools. They pay cash for our best properties. They come in here and pay cash when like normal Americans can't really afford much, which partly it's the normal Americans' fault, but we shouldn't be letting them come in here and pay cash for our land. What a shame. But statistics do not show that they're prejudiced against in the United States. What a messed up tweet. But look at this. Look at this. This funny cartoon that they include with it. Okay, I got to retweet it on my James Anton Hake account. All right, that's what I'm logged into on my Twitter. And if you're not on Twitter, just make a Twitter account. Hopefully your IP or phone number is not blocked. And just don't tweet. And there's this picture of a Mexican-looking guy he's carrying a pitchfork and twirling his revolver. And he says, hunt that. Can I even say this word on YouTube? It says hunt, or on Facebook, hunt that blackie. And then there's a white blonde-haired guy, I think he's white, carrying the Statue of Liberty thing and has a Nazi dog on his leash. And then there's a light-skinned black guy, cop. These are 3 cops chasing after an innocent-looking young black male wearing a hoodie, looking all scared and crying, tear coming out of his eye. But the light-skinned black guy with like shades on his forehead, he's carrying a match or a torch. It is so funny to me. And you know what's funnier still is that it's not like a black, dark nighttime background. It's like broad daylight. Well, I don't know if it's just not colored in. Hunt that blackie. So funny to me. Isn't that a great cartoon? Great work, Chinese media. And honestly, I like it because it's kind of a caricature of what CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, New York Slimes, Washington Compost, all of the, well, actually type of fact-check journalists who try to fact-check President Trump when President Trump says, So are white people being killed by police, right? Which most of it's justified, right? So are white people. More white people. And he's right. And yeah, per capita, blacks get it more because per capita, they're more criminal. Duh. And even the anecdotal evidence, right? Because all of this, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, who wasn't even killed by a cop, and Ahmaud Arbery, who wasn't killed by a cop, and who's that? Mike Brown guy. And all of these people, those are a bunch of bad examples. They're not even good examples when you look into the details of it. When you selectively report details, or lie outright about details, or repeat blacks' lies or propagandists' lies about these stuff, call her an EMT as though she's an upstanding young lady, referring to Breonna Taylor when she wasn't even an EMT anymore. She was still like an assistant in that medical field, something. But she was involved with the drug problems. So funny. But it's a caricature of what we have in America. I think the Americans are a little bit more sophisticated. The so-called Americans, I use the term very loosely. They're very anti-American, are very sophisticated with it. But anybody who knows the reality of crime stats and white on black crime versus black on black crime and black on cop crime, 40% of cop killers are black. And is that a surprise by the way that they talk about police and rap about police and sing about police? Please. And that's encouraged. It's never denounced. So it's funny. I had to share that. It's a funny cartoon. I love that cartoon. By the way, corruption in the country, and the whole Democrat Party is corrupt, and most of the Republican Party is corrupt, but Ohio Democrats, according to Revolver, are dominating absentee ballot requests. Ohio. What a shame. I know some people from Ohio, or known people who at least lived in Ohio, so-called studied there or whatever. Bunch of dumb, blind, brainwashed liberals, including many whites. I knew, there's this so-called Christian husband and wife group. I think they're from Ohio, and they're pushing this nonsense. Christian artists. What a shame. But it's, they're talking about post-election chaos happening. You know how in 2016, we found out, if you were still awake on the West Coast, you found out, what was it, 10:30 or 11:30 at night that Trump won? That may not happen coming up because they have all these so-called absentee ballots and vote by mail and all these requests and people pretending to be scared of this COVID thing. There's a whole lot of females and female-minded people wearing these masks and cussing at people who don't wear their masks and acting like, oh, it's dangerous to go vote in person. There are ways to make it safe. I do like the rule about 6 feet away because I don't like people getting in my personal space, and I don't feel comfortable getting into other people's personal space. So I like that rule. That's nice. The 6 feet thing. I think it's a fair thing. But whatever. There are a whole bunch of liberals doing that. Let me tell you about this Minnesota situation. I was telling you guys in Hake News at the end of hour 2 about the great James O'Keefe of Project Veritas exposing alleged voter fraud. Pull up a picture of Ilhan Omar and just show it when you get a chance. Because when you look at her, she looks like somebody I went to high school with, or like the people I went to high school with. And you look at how she acts and how she talks. Same thing with Rashida Tlaib. She seems more like the sort of ghetto mother of somebody I would have gone to high school with, you know, where they don't mind cheating, and now they're in office. It's a whole culture of the hookup. I'm not talking about having sex, that type of hookup. I'm talking about getting special treatment, and cheating, lying, sneaking in to the country, right? Sneaking into different places. That's their culture, and it's rubbed off on many normal Americans too. But ballot harvesting. I had never known what ballot harvesting was. I believe that Jesse Lee Peterson interviewed somebody regarding ballot harvesting. Is that true, Nick? Did Jesse Lee Peterson interview somebody about ballot harvesting? Nick will give me the name of the guy, but they're doing that. That was nice and loud. Producer Mike, nice and loud. Ilhan Omar, there she is. Look at her. Kind of pretty, young, nose ring, Muslim. She chooses to wear that thing. It's not a burqa. Burqa is when it's all black. The head scarf thingy. I didn't want to call it a head rag. But she is, and you know, she's accused of, by some people, just normal people, of marrying her brother to get him to come into this country. You know, I don't think that she necessarily did anything with her brother, if this is really true, right? But I wouldn't put that past her to just do that and then, you know, get them into the country by hook or by crook, into this country, abusing the system. Somali refugee moved to Kenya as a kid, like at 8 years old or 9 years old, and then came here at 13 years old. What kind of parents does she have? What kind of country is producing that kind of mess? And it's spreading. She's out of, her district includes Minneapolis, right? Paid workers illegally gather absentee ballots from elderly Somali immigrants. And we have a whole bunch of Somali so-called immigrants. Oh, Craig Huey. Hey, I know Craig Huey. We know Craig Huey. He's been on the Jesse Lee Peterson show many times. He has a couple of websites or web addresses. But very nice. Craig Huey. CraigHuey.com. And he has another thing. But I used his website in order to find out what judges to vote for. Because, what? We're going to research that? I don't know that stuff. I don't even know national politics. I just talk about what's in the news, right? But he has some pretty good information. He tries to let the people know how they should vote. He's either a boomer or a little bit older than a boomer. I love boomers, especially like the conservative, decent ones. And he is a pretty decent one. So, hot tip for the people who want to know like how to vote, or like whether you agree with, if you're in California, right? If you agree with or not with the propositions. When in doubt, vote no. Right? When in doubt, vote no. But you can check with him on his website. He tells you about propositions, his grading of different politicians, especially in California politics. Nice. Very nice. Christian guy. So one alleged ballot harvester over here in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Liban Mohammed. Liban Mohammed. Mohamed. They spell it all kinds of different ways. Brother of Minneapolis City Council member Jamal Osman, 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 O-S-M-A-N, was shown in he Snapchatted this. Snapchat video rifling through piles of ballots across his dashboard. Just today, we got 300 for Jamal Osman, says Mohammed, a.k.a. King Libman 1. Very American names, yeah. America has a rich history with Muslims, says Obama. Yeah, like fighting with them. according to who's that guy on Fox and Friends who's interviewed Jesse and Jesse's interviewed him. He talked about, Brian Kilmeade. He wrote about the Barbary pirates who were Muslims. Interesting. This guy had 300 ballots in his car, and you're only supposed to have 3 max. Under Minnesota law, no individual can be the designated agent for more than 3 absentee voters. I guess that's to avoid corruption, which they don't care about corruption. He said, money is the king in this world, and a campaign is driven by money, he says. It's crazy. Whereas President Trump, like he spent less than Hillary, I think, in his campaign, in his 2016 campaign. But because he was a powerful figure telling the truth and standing by it and being real, that's compelling. Dang. And we're like 5 weeks, by the way, away from the presidential election. Dang, that's like less than a month and a half. And it's predicting voter fraud. Trump is, Barr, even Attorney General William Barr is. And Bill Barr would not say it just to kiss up to Trump. He's not like Eric Holder, I'm Obama's wingman. No, he's like, if anything, he's too fake fair. You know, because I think that he has a little bit of that politically correct stuff in him. But they've warned about the use of increased mail-in ballots, just giving away ballots. I played for you a clip of him talking to Wolf Blitzer of CNN. And he pretty much, it's just common sense. It's open. It's open to, oh gosh, this is what I was well, never mind. I was going to say this is what I was talking about when I got my community guidelines strike from YouTube, which is bogus. They changed it from impersonation to spam, scams, or misleading something, right? Not even, misleading is not even the right word, but I don't know. Maybe it's related to that. I don't know. The reason I thought of that is because I was listening to an interview with that black lady who's supposed to be conservative, Candace Owens. And she talked about voter fraud, and then she said, in my opinion, something like that. She qualified it so that YouTube wouldn't give the strike to somebody. It's crazy. So it made me think that might be why. I really don't know. They did the same. They did worse to Jesse Lee Peterson, accused him of a copy strike, and they won't even tell him what he is, the copy strike was about. So he can't appeal it because what if it was something, but most likely it's not. And so he can't even get the strike taken away. It's crazy. Or appeal it or fight it. What a mess. But what's what you expect? Injustice. And that is what YouTube stands for. They support Black Lives Matter. Of course they support injustice. So, unfairness. Facebook page too. It's ridiculous. Our investigation into this ballot harvesting, says James O'Keefe, ballot harvesting ring, demonstrates clearly how these unscrupulous operators exploit the elderly and immigrant communities. Trying to act like the elderly and the immigrant communities are victims. I don't know about that, man. But I think that's James O'Keefe being kind of politically correct. I say some of these people are willing participants. Some of these people know these guys. Just take one look. I bet you. Take one look at this Osman. Oh, no. Well, the Osman guy too, but that's the brother who's on the Minneapolis City Council. But Liban Mohammed guy, take one look at him. I'm betting you that any old person can take one look and see that this guy is a sleazy person. I'm guessing. Totally guessing. But there's another woman who's a whistleblower, completely anonymous, right? But she used to be with the she used to be like a political worker, right? I guess she helped run these elections or whatever. But she said that ballot harvesters took every single ballot from elderly people in a housing complex in Minneapolis. A housing complex. Meaning like the projects, I guess. but elderly, I think. Before the primary, August 8th, over a month ago, they would knock on the door and say, your ballots come, give it to me. And she said that Ilhan Omar's long-serving staffer named Ali Isse Gainey, and they spell it Gainey, but it may be Ganey. Ali Isse Gainey, black dude. Looks African, looks like he might be Somali or something. She says that he was coordinating everything. I don't know if you can trust this woman, but maybe. She claimed that young people and women were paid for their ballots before last month's Minnesota primary. They were carrying bags of money. When you vote, they mark you off, then you get in the van, they give you cash. That's what she said. And this Jamal guy that I told you about, who's the whistleblower, Omar Jamal, he has worked with Minnesota's Ramsey County Sheriff's Office on de-radicalization education. Man, a fox guarding the henhouse. They work with these people. It's like, the Border Patrol is mostly Hispanic. And some of them are honest, and some of them, I don't think they're honest. Some of them have been caught, like, running drugs and running human trafficking stuff. It's crazy. But this guy is working on de-radicalization. It's crazy. We're bringing in these problems, and you have to de-radicalize them now. De-radicalization education. This guy worked with the sheriff's department, and he helped Project Veritas investigators. See? Upstanding young man. Not all Muslims, right? I don't know if he's Muslim, but maybe I assume so if he's working on de-radicalization. They wouldn't let a Christian do it, would they? I don't know. Discrimination, right? Against Christians. He helped Project Veritas investigators unveil what he calls ongoing election fraud that victimizes his community, right? He secretly recorded conversations with the alleged ballot harvester, the Mohammed guy, who's brothers but different last name, with the city council guy, and a member of the DFL, the Democrats over there, the Democrat Farmer Labor Party, Minnesota's version of the Democrat Party. Another grab from this Mohammed guy's Snapchat. These people are shameless. It's stupid, too. With the timestamp of 1:59 a.m., July 2nd, shows a man brandishing a wad of about 30 ballots with the words, official absentee ballot, on the front of the envelopes. 2 a.m, still hustling, he says. Crazy. That's so weird. Meanwhile, FBI director, speaking of the swamp, FBI, is that part of the State Department? It's one of those departments, 90-something% of which donations went to Hillary Clinton. FBI Director Christopher Wray told the Senate last week, we have not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, he said. That's kind of a dishonest way of answering the question, honestly, because it doesn't have to be nationwide, coordinated national voter fraud. People do it locally. Corrupt people will do it of their own volition. And I've known many corrupt people. And I've known them to work elections, interestingly enough. And I don't know if they would do that, but I don't know that they wouldn't. And then they're the type of people that get mad at white Mormon Boy Scouts that are childhood friends with them that say, oh, put that movie poster back. You shouldn't steal. It's crazy. I'm talking about Hispanics. I'm talking about blacks. I'm talking about even the white Democrats. If you're a Democrat, you're a corrupt person. Anyway, Paterson, New Jersey, 2 officials were charged with election fraud last month after hundreds of mail-in ballots were discarded. In Pennsylvania, 9 military ballots from the 2016 election, most for Trump, were found in a dumpster. It was revealed last week. Every little bit, especially in a hotly contested election, as Bill Barr said, we are a very closely divided country right now. We're opening the treasure chest, guys. Dang, I didn't realize that. We're opening the treasure chest Speaking of redistribution of wealth, redistribution of lemons, get your Obama chest. I got to add something in here. But, of course, I mean, Election Integrity Project. Investigated by the IRS. Not even a smidgen of corruption, said Obama. Man. Thank you to Joe Maddock, Noah's Ark, Kansas, fan of the ladies, Logan76. Who else? This thing doesn't stay open. Just saying, Beard the Butcher, what's up, man? Hate Engine, Nigerian Prince 420, Hell Yeah Bear, Cactus Eater Bear. Appreciate you guys. So, Brad Parscale, would you Google a picture of him? Brad Parscale was in charge of the Trump campaign, and I don't know at what point he was hired. I don't know if he was around in 2016 at all. I had a, generally positive impression of him. He seemed like fun-loving, honest, I don't know if honest, but fun-loving guy. Looked interesting. Had a appeal to the kids. I'm halfway joking about this, but he looked like Gen X, Gen Y, young person look to him. And according to the headlines, he was armed, hair's thinning a little. He had this pointy beard thing going. Makes him look like not the traditional look, right? But I don't know much about him. But he was armed and barricaded himself inside his Fort Lauderdale home, according to the reports. And he was hospitalized, which is odd, after threatening to harm himself or maybe even kill himself. And he was summarily fired by President Trump just recently, pretty recently. Not that recently, though. But less than 4 months before the 2020 election. And we're less than a month and a half away now. And I don't know what's going on in this guy's life, but he's in this upscale neighborhood. 4 p.m., man barricaded inside a home. Police responded. They made contact with the woman, the man's wife, who had called 911. What a shame. Her husband was armed, had access to multiple firearms inside the house, and was threatening to kill himself. His wife, Candace, told police her husband made suicidal comments in recent days and had a physical altercation with her. 44 years old. And he was placed under the Baker Act, which allows anyone deemed to be a threat to themselves to be detained for 72 hours for psychiatric evaluation. At least he didn't lie. Like that guy in church, he said that he lied. Remember that? There was a guy who said that he wanted to commit suicide. And then he just outright lied to the cops. He said, I didn't say that. I didn't want to do that. And then he went to church with Jesse Lee Peterson, and now he's doing much better. Has a job, working. Brad Parscale needs a silent prayer. People always promote the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. I wonder what those people say. Has anybody ever called that? And not that I'm encouraging people to just call just to investigate, but I don't know. But they were saying, by the way, he's 6'8". Pretty tall man. We need Corey Lewandowski back. Is Corey Lewandowski around? Is he still in there? He's been pretty faithful to President Trump. He's the guy that grabbed that. Was she a Breitbart reporter? And then she kind of turned against Trump and accused Corey Lewandowski of jerking her too hard. She was trying to walk up and ask a question. He pulled her, probably pulled her pretty hard. But he's like a young man, a man in his 40s, family man. Brad Parscale, does he have kids, children? But, he attracted some attention. He had sort of a glitzy lifestyle, this Parscale guy. And so Trump didn't really like that. And, his messaging, President Trump's messaging, at least prior to firing him, was like kissing up to politically correct stuff. I hate that. Kissing up to the Republicans, which the Republicans are a bunch of dumb liberals anymore, you know? So, but I heard that Parscale was scapegoated by Kushner. That's what I heard. I don't know, but Kushner might have been the one being politically correct. But I like how Trump is running. He's fighting to win, and hopefully he'll win. Anyway, guys, appreciate the support. Thank you to the supporters on streamlabs.com/The Hake Report, as well as dlive.tv/The Hake Report. Demonetized on YouTube, but at least I'm streaming there. Appreciate it, guys. TheHakeReport.com for my stuff. JesseLeePeterson.com for Jesse Lee Peterson's stuff. Make sure you catch Church with Jesse Lee Peterson. You can podcast afterwards. All right? Take care, guys.